Hey guys, this is Dark Liberator, and today I have a gameplay commentary for you. Well, I also observe about tanks in general in Battlefield 3 and tips and tricks about using them, and a brief background, that sort of thing. And I hope you learned something new from here. If you don't, I hope it's an interesting watch. Now, concerning the tank itself, the Russian and U.S. Army, they obviously have the Abrams and the T-90, and in Battlefield 3, while the tanks don't really have the same problems as their smaller cousins, such as getting stuck in a tree or bouncing on water, but tanks do have their own problems, such as sliding down a hill, for instance, and this is especially prominent on Wake Island, which is hell for the T-90 to go up, and slides constantly. And also, they can't seem to go up hills very well either. That's probably related to the sliding in general. Now, as you can see here, I'm using the combo canister, reactive armor, and smoke. And I use canister because it's very good with fleshing out enemy infantry. And you can take down choppers too if you've got a good aim. And I actually regularly disable choppers and jets whenever they go over me, if they're low enough. You have to sort of time it in an orderly fashion. But there are other combos you can use, obviously. And I also use guided shell with CTV if a friend's like around, if I got somebody in TeamSpeak, and I usually do. And usually what happens is either I or them lock on the target and I fire the guided shell at it, and the chopper can't do much about it except for use ECM jammer. But most chopper pilots in this game seem to use flares instead of ECM jammer, since it's not primarily known yet that they can take out flares too, and it should be known. I'll probably have to make also a guide sort of on helicopters if people like this sort of thing. But anyway, so using a tank effectively, well, first off, you have to know your weaknesses of your tank. Obviously, the back of the tank is the most vulnerable part. One RPG can disable you if aimed correctly, assuming it's aimed correctly and you have reactive armor. That's why I have reactive armor, to save my ass. But you have to remember that the back part of your armor is always the weakest. So when you're facing an enemy tank, you sort of have to angle where you're facing your front armor. That way, it doesn't disable you from the back, and at least you have a chance. And obviously, when you aim at an enemy tank, you always try to hit for his weakest part, which is usually the back or the rear part. That front part of the armor is always the strongest part. Though there might be some parts of the tank that seem to instantly destroy. I don't know if it's a bug or intended. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. But anyway, here's the history on Battlefield tanks from my perspective. Now, in Battlefield 2, if you had a tank, you felt like a beast. You were a monster. Nothing could stop you. Nothing. But anything that did damage to you, if a coordinated team of engineers could work together, they could take you down easily. I hear many complaints about the vehicles being overpowered in this game, and I feel that they're actually a little weaker than they should be, because you have this disable thing, and secondly, one engineer could just take you down if he knew what he was doing. And unfortunately, there's a lot of engineers out there with RPGs. Thankfully, there's no RPG spread for, taking out infantry. But anyway, if enough RPGs take you down to disabled level, usually, in most pub games I've seen, the engineer would just run out, either repair, or the guy would just bolt and leave the tank there. And usually, when that happens, I steal the tank. But saying that aside, well, actually, this is another question. Do you guys think that people should sit in their tanks and wait for it to explode while taking down as many enemies as they should, or run away and save your stats? I mean, basically, the question is obvious to me. I would try to take it down as many people as I can, even if I'm in tank and it's almost hopeless. If you can distract the enemy team for 1 second, you can probably distract them from the objective. Assuming they're going for the objective. I mean, they might not be. It depends on what your mode you're in, that sort of thing. But there's tanks in your mode, and it's either rush or conquest. But anyway, putting that aside, here are some tips for taking out, multiple tanks and that sort of thing. Now, if you're facing two enemy tanks, for example, and one is ignoring you while the other one is looking at you, you obviously shoot for the guy who's looking at you, because the other guy's not looking at you. And you could take out both if you know what you're doing. They have to sort of angle away where it has to hit your front armor while you're hitting them in the back. And usually the enemy tank, they only react. They just shoot at the first place they can click on, while you have time to think about it, because your shots take a little while to reload, and you pick and choose your shots. Now, if you're in a situation where there's two enemy main battle tanks looking at you, and you're in one tank by yourself outnumbered 2-1, I have to ask you, why did you even go on and attract attention of two tanks? You're not Rambo. You're a freaking armored tank. And if there's two enemy armored tanks looking at you, I would be worried. You have to think about this very carefully. You're an asset, a team asset. You have to use your vehicle very wisely. But if you're stuck in a situation like that, I would try to take cover as quickly as you can. Do hit and run attacks on one tank. Don't hit both tanks because if you focus your shells on both tanks, like one shell for each, they can just auto repair. Now, if you focus both of your shells on one tank itself, then you can get them disabled and even destroyed if you have enough time before they destroy you. And at least you destroyed an enemy asset, and instead of getting owned by 2 tanks. And I view that as successful. 1 versus 1, you lose 1, they lose 1, so it's fair play there. And another trick or tip, no, this is not either. This is essential. Look at your freaking map all the time. If there's an enemy tank coming towards you, then you know. If there's enemy mines ahead of you, then you would know. Though sometimes the mines are obscured. I don't know why. Like, sometimes they aren't hidden. And if there's an enemy unit, like a guy running towards you or nearby, then you would know. Because you accomplish all this by looking at the goddamn map. People don't ever look at the map. That way you can achieve tactical decisions like, okay, if I go up this road, then I fight this guy. But if I go up this road, then I can flank him and hit him from behind, and pronto, I got the enemy tank, plus I can kill the engineer who's repairing him. Yeah, also another thing is that when you're getting repaired by a friendly, try to angle the tank where you're protecting him, so that way he doesn't get killed by infantry while you're repairing. Sort of like, try to stick the tank out in front of him, that way the enemy tank doesn't hit him, and hopefully your gunner, who's decent, will look for anybody who's shooting at your engineer who's repairing you, assuming he's not the engineer. And basically the best tip is communication. And always chat with your teammates, find out what they know, assuming you're in like a voice platform like Skype or something. But anyway, this is coming up to a wrap now, and I hope you guys enjoyed this commentary and tips, and hope you learned something. And I probably will do one on jets and helicopters too when I get the time, probably after this is done. Hopefully when I get some good gameplay. So anyway, thanks for watching, and post your opinions on what you think of vehicles and Battlefield 3 in general. And the tanks themselves, obviously, since this is a tank gameplay. So anyway, thanks for watching, and peace out, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Towards the end, I start messing around killing people with smoke grenades.
Yeah, I know.
I just sat in the tank the entire round, blasting everybody.
Dude, I'm so good with